Juan called me. And Jaime had already called me. My son Jaime had already called me and told me, hey, Mom, I'm going on a mission this weekend, so I probably won't be able to call you. Um, Keep me in your prayers, and I'll talk to you when I get back. They're a day ahead of us. So Sunday morning, I get a call from Juan Sr., their father. And he says, hello, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm okay, what's wrong? And he said, you need to sit down for a minute. And I said, no. You know, he says, well, you know that Jaime went on a mission. And I said, yeah, Jaime's supposed to be coming back today. He promised he would call me today. And he said, well, Jaime's been wounded. I was speechless. I couldn't breathe. I just stood there. I just stood there and, oh my God, what are you talking about? He's been wounded? Is he okay? I don't know. They just called me to let me know. And I've called in to find out what's going on, but they got he's at the hospital. So I said, oh, okay. Obviously, at that moment, my best friend Lizzie was sitting in the room with me, and when she saw me lose my breath and just shut up, she grabbed the phone out of my hand and said, what's going on? And obviously he explained what was going on, and she pushed me to sit down. And then I said, keep talking, because if you don't, I'm going to die here. And that's when he explained what had happened to my son. He had been shot by a sniper during the mission. He had, my sons are officers, so he was leading his platoon. He had the radio guy with him, he had the medic with him, he had one other person with him and himself. There was a group of 4. And at the point where he had been shot, they had been going around in circles, it seemed. They were lost. They couldn't get their directions. Everything was blocked, because they can block the means of communications for the soldiers that are out there, so that soldiers feel lost. And until they can get, and when you're an officer, obviously you have to carry your rank on your clothes. And he was bringing up the rear, and they took him out. So when they turned around to ask what was going on, my son was on the floor, and he got up. He didn't know he had been wounded. He got up and he said, damn, what the hell was that? And the medic saw him, and he was bleeding. He said, you've been dead, you've been shot, you've been, wounded. And my son is, what? And then when he looked down, he was bleeding. And so, sit down, sir, and after he was wounded, suddenly everything came back up. The communications, everything. So the whatever they were using to block their communications was released, and they were all able to call for an ambulance. My son was, I don't need none of that stuff. Just leave me alone. Let's get back. I said, but you're bleeding. You don't know how. We can't even tell. That thing could explode in you. That it could be lodged. It could ruin your organs. We don't know. You need to stay still. The truck arrived. He jumps into the truck on his own. I mean, he's, being raised this way to, you know, do more than you can. They get him to the hospital. The bullet had pierced his armor and had just barely missed his heart. And it went right through and was caught in the back. So that's what I find out hours later. In the meantime, I'm in shock, and they get me ready. I said, I have to go tell my father. And I don't want to tell him on the phone because I don't want him to be alone. So I get there, my father is crying and saying it should have been me. And I packed, I didn't pack. Lisi packed for me. And I called my daughter-in-law and told her, I'll be right there. The process is an 8-hour process, you know, from Puerto Rico to Philadelphia, getting tickets, getting the word out, trying to call my mom to let her know what was going on, get her to, you know, my mother's very spiritual and a medium, so depend on her prayers to help my son survive this incident, which I did not know how hurt he was. I couldn't get through. I get back to where I live, which is in town, and I'm preparing my clothes, or just getting myself together to get to the airport, and talking to people in the meantime, and I get a phone call from him. And he says, Mom, I'm okay. And I said, no, you're not. He said, Mom, I'm calling you to let you know that I am conscious, that I can move, and that I'm okay. And I said, okay, I'll be there in 2 days. And he was like, it's okay, Mom. Don't worry about me. I'm really okay. I'm fine. I get to the airport, finally get a hold of my sister. We break down and crying on the phone. I tell her to pick me up at the airport because it's already, I can't get any other flight but the one that leaves me there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I get to New Jersey to have her, well, stay in New Jersey because that's an international airport, because I was on my way to Germany, and I was on my way from Germany to Israel, and I was on my way from Israel with my daughter-in-law, who's Israeli, to rent a car because I was going to get to Iraq. I was going to get to the hospital, and I was going to pick up George Bush on the way. That's how angry I was. So I get to New Jersey, and I get, my daughter-in-law is brought over by my brother. She was in Philadelphia, and she was also hysterical. We couldn't, you know. We wait for her to arrive, and we have tickets to Germany. I mean, we were going, and my son calls again, and he says, well, in the meantime, let me backtrack. I get to New Jersey. By the time that I get to the airport and I'm leaving on the 1:30 flight into Newark from Puerto Rico, I get a phone call from his dad, who had called another one of our friends who's very high up in the military, who had just landed in Iraq. Landed in Iraq that day. And being upper echelon officers, they communicate with each other fairly easily. So my friend from childhood gets a call from Jaime's father, and he says, not a problem, I'll be at the hospital, give me a couple of hours. orders a helicopter, take me to the hospital. Walks in, walks right up to my son's bed. Everybody is like, oh, heads up, officer, you know, saluting and everything like that. And gets to my son's bed, sees my son, talks to him. My son walks around with him, calls me while I'm at the airport and tells me he's fine. I said, are you making him take him to Germany? And he said, no, he's staying. And I said, what are you talking about he's staying? He says, he wants to stay. I said, no, bring him to Germany so I could at least see him. And he said, no, he's a soldier. He's an officer. He wants to be with his men. He wants to show his men that he can't be taken down. And I said, I understand that. And at that point, when we were making the arrangements to go to Germany, he had called me a second time and yet a third time, because when they're in the hospital, they have access to the telephone a lot easier. My son had lost some blood, but there was a soldier that was in worse condition than he was. And there was no more of blood type A in the reserves. And they came and they asked my son if he could donate some blood to help this soldier get to Germany, because he needed blood and there was no more. And he said, what does my doctor say? And his doctor came over and says, you're fine. You could do whatever you want. He said, put it in. God bless my baby. He saved another soldier's life. He gave enough blood so that soldier was able to get transferred to Germany to be taken care of, and the boy survived. So they told him he could go home, and he said no. I don't have vacation till X time. I'll go home at that point. And he went back. Within a week, he was up. And well, he was up within 3 days. And he had asked to be discharged, and I told him, no, you need to sit there. And he says, Mom, I can't stand it here. And I told him, if you don't want to see a crazy little Puerto Rican woman standing over your bed and tying you down, you better stay where you are, because you need to heal. And he said, Mom, take it easy. I'm a big boy. I'm my own man now. I can handle this. What I can't handle is seeing soldiers that are in worse condition than I am and them needing my bed. I need to get out of here. And I said, okay, you need to get out of there.